Game development explained. No theory, just what works.
So if you're on a hybrid team, you know this feeling, right? Communication isn't totally broken, but man, that friction is just impossible to ignore. Well, what if there was a simple rulebook to fix it? Let's dive in.
Let me ask you something. Does this sound familiar? Your calendar is just jammed. Chat is constantly lighting up, new documents are popping up everywhere, and sure, it looks like progress, but deep down that the same topics just keep coming up and built projects feel like they're just drifting. Well, it turns out there's actually a name for that.
It's called hybrid drift, and it's what happens when there's no clear default for when you should meet versus when you should just handle things async. It's like this slow, quiet decay of your team's alignment, where all these tiny little communication gaps start turning into major scheduling headaches. Okay, so what does this drift actually look like, day to day? It's almost never one big crisis. No, instead, it's a collection of small, compounding costs that just add up. You see it in those async threads where a million opinions fly around, but nobody ever steps in to make a final call. It's in those so-called unblocking meetings that feel super productive at the moment, but a week later, the same question comes back because nothing was actually written down. You end up with these two completely separate realities, what people think they remember from the call and what the project ticket actually says. And let's be honest, the ticket almost always loses. This whole mess leads to meeting inflation, where all that uncertainty just breeds more meetings, which eats up your focus time, which, you guessed it, creates even more uncertainty. So how do we fix this? Well, the key is to stop arguing about whether meetings are good or async is bad. Honestly, that's a total trap. Instead, we need to completely reframe the goal around what actually drives real progress. And right here, this is the key insight. This isn't about some grand philosophy. It's about getting stuff done. We really only need two things: speed, so we can move forward without getting stuck waiting, and closure, so we can stop deciding the same thing over and over and over again. Meetings and async, they're just tools to help us get there. And the way we get that speed and closure is with a really simple, minimal rulebook. Look, we don't need a 30-page manifesto here. We just need a few consistent defaults that everybody on the team understands. All right, rule number 1, default to async for any new proposals. If you want people to weigh in on something, you do not need to call a meeting. You just need a clear message that respects their time. And a useful proposal always has these 4 parts: a clear purpose, a couple of viable options, your recommendation, and, this is the most important part, a response window. That last one is what stops these threads from dragging on forever. So, if proposals are handed async, when in the world do we actually meet? Well, Rule 2 says you're only justified in calling a meeting for one of 3 reasons: for fast convergence, when you're on a tight deadline; to resolve a conflict that's just getting messy in writing; or to unpack some real complexity, where a live Q&A is going to save you hours of back and forth. If your reason isn't on this list, it's probably not a meeting. Okay, rule number 3 is an absolute game changer. Every single meeting has to produce a durable output, something that actually survives after the call ends. This isn't just about feeling productive, it's about actually moving the project forward. Did you make a clear decision? Did you create a plan with owners and dates? Or did you define an escalation path? If you can't point to one of these 3 outputs, the meeting was probably just a social ritual. Which brings us to maybe the most important rule of all, the write-up. It is mandatory, but, and this is key, it has to be lightweight. This is your single biggest defense against hybrid drift. Most teams fail at this because they make it a huge chore. The secret is to do it immediately, literally in the last 2 minutes of the call. Just capture these 4 quick points, and boom, you've created a permanent record. And finally, rule 5. This one tackles all those async threads that just never seem to land anywhere. Every single proposal has to be explicitly closed with a clear state. This is how you avoid what the source material calls polite failure, where nobody really wants to say no, so the work just stays in limbo until it quietly disappears. Now, rules are great and all, but they only really work if they're easy to follow. The system needs a few simple mechanisms to support us, as actual humans who aren't perfect. So here are 3 key support systems. First, get in the habit of using a pre-read for decision calls so you don't waste the first 10 minutes just explaining the problem. Second, and this is so simple but so powerful, assign the write-up owner in the calendar invite. No more awkward silence at the end. And third, pick one and only one place to be the home for all your proposals and decisions. If people can't find it, it's going to get redecided, I promise you. Of course, even with a great system, you're going to hit some predictable traps. If you find yourself saying, wait, nobody wrote it down, the fix is to assign the owner before the call next time. If your async threads are turning into endless debates, you need to add a response window and a designated closer. And if you notice decisions are disappearing into DMs, you just enforce a simple rule. If it's a decision, copy it to the source of truth. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually start without, kicking off a huge culture war over new process? Well, the answer is to start small, with a really simple, high-impact challenge. But first, let's just remember the core idea here. Hybrid drift happens when conversation feels like progress, even when it isn't. Our whole goal is to convert that good conversation into durable, real, forward momentum. And here's the crucial part. You can test this whole system with a simple one-week challenge. For the next 5 days, just do 2 things. 1, before you schedule any decision meeting, just check if it's for convergence, conflict, or complexity. And 2, after every single one of those meetings, take 2 minutes to write down the outcome. That's it. Seriously, that is the whole challenge. Take on that challenge for just 1 week, and I guarantee you will feel the difference almost immediately. It all comes down to one final, really powerful question. Is your team having the same conversation twice? If the answer is yes, well, now you know exactly what to do about it.
If this is useful, subscribe.
New breakdowns every week.